here. We have whistleblower retaliation against Black workers likely fueling the spread of COVID-19. Walk us through this story.
So there was a survey that was done, and I made this the exclusive story that we sent out with the Dissenter Newsletter this past week. And so just to give a thumbnail summary of what this basically is about, there was a survey that was conducted that found essentially that Black workers in the United States are more than twice as likely as white workers to have experienced retaliation for raising health and safety concerns during the COVID-19 pandemic. And one connection they made that you don't see, and I think I could do a better job of making this connection in the stories that I've covered, because I had not made this connection in my coverage yet, which is that the impact that we're seeing from COVID-19 on Black communities, Latino communities, any marginalized or vulnerable communities that don't really have the ability to speak up in the workplace, that the greater exposure and the greater spread of COVID-19 that is happening is a result and can be connected to these repressive workplace environments. And I think that's an important point, is that not feeling like you have the ability to raise your voice and challenge the lack of safety means that you're being silent. You're trying to keep your job. We just did a comprehensive report that was published by Michael Sionato over at Shadowproof, looking at the raging class warfare that is unfolding against poor and working class Americans, people who are struggling to obtain their unemployment insurance benefits. They're struggling to get personal protective equipment in their workplace that can protect them. They are going through so much, and those pressures, those external pressures that they are feeling, lead to silence and a feeling that you're just going to try and cope and survive, and you really don't want to raise your voice while you're in the workplace. And what happens is that makes everyone else there in the workplace more likely to be hurt and harmed, and it means it's more likely that we're going to see spread of the virus in our own communities outside those workplaces. It has an actual detrimental impact on all of us that these people are not able to come forward. And so this survey examined this dynamic that exists. It was done by the National Employment Law Project, which is a nonprofit that is directly concerned about expanding policies to protect unemployed and low-wage workers. And I think the survey, which they did a few months ago, touched on some very important issues. It also caught the attention of several prominent senators who wrote a letter to the U.S. Labor Department and in very stark and direct terms said that you need to step up and engage in enforcement actions to protect these workers because you haven't. And the occupational safety and health administration, OSHA, has let just like the MSPB just let these whistleblower complaints pile up, and they haven't done anything to protect workers. And meanwhile, you've seen this class warfare unfolding. And a very clear example was Christian Smales in Staten Island. Amazon was a Black worker. He, very early on in the pandemic in April, raised his voice, challenged the lack of safety measures at that workplace, or a campaign for it to be shut down because Amazon was going to keep it open even as this outbreak continued in that facility. And he was retaliated against and fired. And eventually the Attorney General's office in New York validated his claims and said that they were concerned about how Amazon was treating potential whistleblowers like Christian Smales. And so, I think that this is something that points to a dynamic that we really need to keep paying attention, because this has become the status quo right now. This is going to be the way things are from now until at least the end of this year, and it's going to keep having very detrimental effects on workers.